In this video, I'll show you how to construct the figure 8-2F, the swing bracket. There's a few techniques in there that are interesting. I will start with the circular part, as I usually do. Now you'll notice on that inside hole, there's a tolerance on that. We're just going to use a nominal 1-inch dimension on it, and then when we put dimensions on it, we'll make sure that we add the tolerance. So the tolerance doesn't affect how you draw it. And there's the general shape. Put my dimensions on there. And that's 1/2 inch thick. And as usual, we'll pay attention to symmetry. And I need that overall length. Center, it's actually 5.75. Let's dimension this height. I have a purple line there. Not sure why that is. Yeah, that takes care of that. And I'll use my trim tool. Get rid of those lines. And that's a really good starting point. I'll extrude that shape to 2.5. Okay, this section here needs to be hollowed out. So let's make a sketch on the top. Now remember, when I choose this surface, I'm really choosing the infinitely large plane that surface lies on. So when I make my next sketch, I'm going to make sure I'm on the 2-point rectangle. I can go past there. And in fact, I don't have to line it up exactly with that. I can bring it out here as long as I am, I want to cut through here. As long as I go past that point, then that's totally fine. And again, not only control the size, but control the shape. In this case with symmetry, I want to cut this out symmetrically. And everything's pretty much 0.5. So as long as those lines are black, I don't really care about that one. Now, again, I just have to make sure that goes. I don't need that dimension. I just make sure that those black lines are in the area I want to cut out. That, again, because it's constrained. So you can see what I'm looking at right now. I'll do an extrude cut. And I'll go all the way through. There we go. So I've got that part done. I do have kind of an interesting situation here. First of all, let's put that slot in there. So we'll start a new sketch. Oh, oops, trying to move it. So below rectangle we have our slot tool, and the one you want to use is the one that's center to center. You've got a couple options here, center to center on those, and remember how that works. Basically draw a line, and in this case that slot is 1 inch long, and then move your cursor for how wide it's going to be. You can input in that box, you can input, or you can come back later and use the dimension tool. In this case, that slot is 0.76, and that's a diameter dimension. Now we do need to locate the slot. In this case, it is 2 inches from the end of the part. To right there. Right, don't dimension to the center of slot, dimension to the center of those the radii on the end. And that dimension right there, I just said it's 2 inches. And I'll need to dimension it vertically as well. Excuse me, so that's 1.25. Also, I have another slot here, and I think I'll just use the circle tool on that one. That slot is also 0.76 long, and it's 0.75 to the center of the circle. And I'll use the line tool, connect the quadrants. And I'm just going to come out past the edge instead of trying to click directly on the edge. Trim that out. Let's see, we do need to dimension that vertically. It's also 1.25. I think we're okay with that, so I should be able to cut those two out now. Even though those are purple, it's constrained enough for what I'm trying to do. We want to cut. Let's see. Okay, so what makes this kind of interesting is it's called a boss. There's a raised area around the perimeter of that slot. So the thing to do there is let's make a new sketch. Is again use your slot tool. I'll use the same slot tool here. And if you click, don't click, but move your cursor around to that arc there and the center mark for that circle. Don't click it, but if you just move your cursor around there, and you'll find the center of that, and come out here. Same thing. I'm not clicking it. I'm just coming out there, and you'll see the circle, the center of that will now show up. Click that because that's how long that boss is, and then I'm just going to bring it out to the perimeter of this thing. And I'm going to have to do that twice because I have to do the hole on the inside. And the one on the outside. And this one will match the existing, as you'll see in a minute, because what I'm doing is creating a boss that still has a hole in it. I do need a dimension on this guy right here, and that's 1.26. Oops, it's a radius. Should be a radius. 0.52. Alright, let's finish that. So I have an enclosed shape right there. I'll extrude that, and I just want to choose that. So again, I've got two slots because one's the outside and one's the inside. Otherwise, it would just fill that hole that I already have. And that doesn't stick up very far. How does that stick up? It's only 0.1 inches. And there's your boss there. What we have left to do is add quite a few fillets. Let's go ahead and fillet these big corners here, and those have a radius of 0.6. Click on those corners. And then let's see what else. Everything else, pretty much this part would be cast, and that's why all those corners are filleted. So you just want to go around the perimeter and basically fillet everything. Now sometimes the order in which you put fillets on changes the shape. If you do something in it, if you put a fillet on it, it does something odd, just undo it and try filleting something else first. So we need to set this fillet radius. It's quite small. It's only 0.1, because when you make a casting, you can't make corners really sharp, or you can't get the parts out of the mold. So see what happens here. Because I did that corner first and then do this one, it may create something that you don't like. If that's the case, just go back and do it in a different order. And you can keep filleting. At some point, I'm going to tell you that don't try to do all your fillets, because if you make a mistake, you're going to have to undo and redo every one of the fillets. So that's what we're going to end up doing, is just going around the whole thing. Let me do a few of those and then I'll kind of fast forward. We're going to stay on that 0.1. You also have right here that radius too on that boss, something like that. And notice on your part tree, what happens is each time you make a fillet, and if you hold your cursor on there, you'll see those will be highlighted. So if I decide to change that, I can just right click, excuse me, edit the feature, and then you could change the radius if need be. So you can always, it's very, very easy to go back and edit things if you do happen to make a mistake. Now let's see what happens on this one. When we choose this, say everything is pretty much connected here. If I do that, it's going to fillet everything up until that sharp corner. So again, depending on the order of operations, and we'll just keep filleting here. Let's stop for a second, see where we are. Now these insides, they don't have fillets on them. Those holes, any of those holes don't have fillets, but this inside part where this is kind of slotted out, that needs to be filleted. I think what I'll do first is I'll fillet these two inside corners, and then if I click here, click on these, and I think that'll do it. Yeah, I think that's everything. Again, you've got the insides, the edges of these corners are squared off, they're not filleted. So there is your model.